Welcome back. Great to have you with us on The Full View. Now, the Democratic Alliance alleges that something is fishy with regards to a food contract awarded by Gauteng Health. Gauteng Health spent nearly 24 million rand on food for Gauteng hospitals through a supplier from Limpopo. The DA has asked why it used a provider from another province in the first place. To discuss, we're joined by the DA Gauteng Shadow Health MEC, Jack Bloem, and then we will receive a reply from Gauteng Health. Mr. Bloem, thank you for being with us. What are your concerns?
Well, it's inexplicable to me why we are getting bread, eggs and fruit from another province. It just makes no sense whatsoever. Why aren't we using local suppliers, particularly township suppliers, as the Premier of this province has made a priority? Instead, we've spent well over 20 million rand buying perishables from a neighbouring province. So I suspect that there's irregularities involved, that we're possibly overpaying. There are 54 companies that are on this contract, and 7 of them are construction companies. Are we buying fruit and vegetables from construction companies? It looks very fishy to me, very much like the Tembisa hospital contracts where there was massive overpayment, fake companies, and it seems to me that this contract should be halted as soon as possible. There should be an investigation. Who authorised it, and are people benefiting from it who shouldn't benefit from it? I mean, how on earth can a Joburg hospital order bread and eggs from another province? It makes no sense whatsoever.
So you did ask for an official response, and the Health MEC said it was due to a shortage of food provisions from local suppliers. Are you not happy with that response?
Well, you could go to your local supermarket and get any of these suppliers any time of the day. So it's a very unsatisfactory response. I think that they wanted to piggyback on this Limpopo contract for fishy reasons, and who knows, there might be payoffs. As we've seen, there are ANC politicians benefiting from some of the contracts at the Tembisa hospital. Just makes utterly no sense. We have lots of local suppliers. We've got township suppliers. We've got people who'd be very pleased to have this business in Gauteng. Instead, we import it from a neighbouring province, and the threadbare excuse is that you can't set up a contract with local suppliers. I mean, there's something. Either they're incredibly inefficient, or there's something suspect about why they decided they had to use a contract from a neighbouring province.
So 54 companies are involved, so they come under an umbrella, or how does it work? As far as you understand, are those 54 companies working together to supply most Gauteng hospitals, or some of them? How does it work?
Well, it's what they call a transversal contract. Normally you do this if you can't get something within your own province, say specialised medical equipment, and you decide, well, we'll piggyback on a contract in a neighbouring province. I think it's highly irregular to piggyback on a simple contract for food. Just imagine the extra transport costs. Why are we transporting perishables from Limpopo, which is quite a distance, to our hospitals in Gauteng? So I really think there needs to be a proper investigation about this, and I'm doing further questions to the MEC in Gauteng. It's just suspicious from top to bottom.
And you're raising serious questions and saying it's suspicious, but let's be clear, you have no evidence of corruption or mismanagement at this stage.
Well, I'd like to see if we've overpaid for some of these products, and if some of these companies are real companies or just fake companies. This is what we saw in Tembisa Hospital. They were what they called shelf companies. But I looked at the 54 companies. 7 of them are construction companies. There's a motor shop company. There's an engineering company. How are they supplying food? In fact, there don't seem to be that many food suppliers on this list of 54 companies. So, are we grossly overpaying for it? Why are we paying transport costs? It certainly There's logistical problems in transporting food that distance, and is the bread still going to be fresh if you carted it all the way from another province? So I think legitimate questions. We need proper answers, but I think that it's very easy indeed to have a local contract with food suppliers. That's what we should do, benefit local suppliers and township suppliers, as the Premier has prioritised. But here we are, buying from engineering companies in a neighbouring province. So I'd question whether these are all real companies. Maybe they've just got their three quotes from companies all just made up specifically to give false quotes so that a certain company gets the business. So it smacks a lot of the tender corruption that we've seen at the Tembisa Hospital. Already 23.6 million rand has been spent, and that the contract is still operative. So even as we speak, they're still ordering fruit, vegetables, bread and eggs from Limpopo.
All right. Thank you, DA Gauteng Shadow Health MEC Jack Bloem. And let's get a reply. Straight away, we will bring in a Gauteng Health spokesperson. So let's speak now to Molatale Modiba. Mr. Modiba from Gauteng Health, thank you. Can you respond to the concerns? According to the DA, you are buying food from contractors, including a motor shop, all the way in Limpopo.
Well, I think, Francis, it's important that we set the record straight, because I think there's a lot of deliberate misinterpretation of facts by Mr. Bloem. First, you would recall that in June this year, we made an announcement as a department that we are embarking on a process to actually put in place a tender where we will contract multiple service providers to be able to provide us with various items. Now, that process is underway. And as part of that process being underway, in order for the department not to find itself, issuing, procuring goods irregularly, we had to look for a contract that is currently in place. We applied in accordance with the relevant Treasury regulations, Regulation 16A6.6, which allows us to be able to apply for permission to participate in an already established tender process, so that while we are finalizing our own process this side, we don't find ourselves also again being in the wrong in terms of irregularly procuring goods. This current arrangement is a temporary arrangement. We started, I think, with this procuring goods using this particular contract in August this year. It's not an indefinite process. We have already, in terms of the departmental processes, started with some of the contracts already are now being awarded. The red meat contract, for example, has already been awarded in September. It's going to run for the next 3 years. I know that the groceries contract will also be concluded by December. Other contracts will also be concluded now in November. The commitment that the department has made is that by the end of this financial year, we would have concluded the various tenders in terms of the various food items that were put out for tender. So it's not true that there's something fishy in relation to this. There was proper processes followed where Treasury had given permission for Gauteng in the meantime, while we're finalizing our own tender processes, to be able to participate in the existing contract. And by the way, this particular contract that is being spoken of, it was audited by the Auditor General, and it was cleared, it was found to be complying, and therefore our participation is within law, and actually has been given the green light for us to be able to participate. Even with the companies, by the way, that are participating in this particular contract, there are some companies that are even from the Gauteng province who have participated in the particular contract. But I think that is beyond the matter. The matter is that we are allowed by law to be able to participate in an arrangement like this, especially now that given the large volumes of quantities of things that we need to be able to procure. So
Mr.
this was
Modiba,
the safer route for the department to follow in the meantime for us to
You have made it clear that
into a space where we find ourselves with irregular expenditure.
You've made it clear that you are allowed to do this, but the question is, was there no local supplier, no local contract in place? You said a contract had to be in place while you sort out a new tender. Were there no other possibilities? Because it is a fair question to ask, why is food being transported with the issues around perishable foods, with the issues of the costs of transporting that and the time it takes to do so? Was there no better alternative in Gauteng?
When you participate in contracts of this nature, you are bound by the terms and conditions that have said. The department is not incurring any more cost than what the actual cost of this particular contract would be. And Mr. Bloom would know that better, because part of the conditions when you participate is that you obviously will not be able to alter the terms and conditions of that particular contract. But it is not to say that the suppliers are necessarily bringing stock from Limpopo, bring it to Gauteng. They very well be procuring from Gauteng and supplying facilities in Gauteng. Right. The contract in place for us not to incur irregular expenditure, and given the amounts that are involved here, it was important that we appoint service providers that have already been pre-vetted and that have already gone through a competitive bidding process. Hence, we had to apply as a department to be given permission to participate, and that permission was given with an understanding that the department is currently having its own process that is underway, which is almost at the end of its completion. As I've already said, part of the process that we're already involved in, some of the tenders have already been awarded. As I've already alluded, the red meat has already been given. We're concluding the groceries one. I know that in terms of processed vegetables, it will also be concluded at the end of this month. The commitment that we have made is that by the end of this financial year, we would have awarded the contract across all the various food items that we need to. So this current arrangement has been made to ensure that in the best interest of delivery, so that we don't find ourselves being tapping in terms of irregular expenditure. You would know very well, Francis, that if you're going to procure for over $1 million, for example, you need to go on a tender process. It's not a question that you can just request for quotations.
Indeed. I'm sorry to interject. We've simply run out of time, but I think there was ample opportunity to explain why that is in place. That was Gauteng Health spokesperson Motalatale Modiba responding to the DA claim that something is wrong with that food contract with companies, some of them based in Limpopo.